Hello, lovely people. So today I have this Nissan Qashqai back, and it is a bit dusty. I know it's dusty. And what I did, I tuned it. So, just a very quick, um, I don't know, public announcement. This car was done by Lean Platinum. He did installed all the speakers. He tuned the car, and just for everybody to know, the tune that Lee done is amazing. This car was brought to me. Actually, I asked it because I wanted to play with it. I just wanted to hear how it sounds, and I wanted to do so. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the tune. It's bloody amazing, and I just wanted to tune this car with micro precision speakers because I never ever had any like that level speakers in my car or like to tune. So I was very just interested how they sound, like how they tune. And I'm gonna go through all the RTA. I have all the RTA, so we're gonna go through all the measurements. I'm gonna show you how they measured like. But what I want to say, I tuned it, I timed it, I'm gonna show you everything. This car sounds, my god, it's like, I want to say one of the best cars I've ever heard. Okay, so it's not perfect. For example, doors. You can feel some rattles from the doors on very loud levels, and you can feel the vibrations with your legs, but it's doors. You cannot do anything about it. But like the mid-range and the tweeters, it's better than in my car. Seriously, like the dynamics and everything. It's like, oh my god, this is the one of the best sounding cars I've ever heard, and the dust doesn't do justice to this car. So yeah, um, I was listening to it for a bit right now, and oh my god, seriously, if John ever goes anywhere in like a meeting or whenever, you have to hear this car definitely because it sounds bloody awesome. Cool. So let's go into the laptop and see all the measurements.
And here we are back with all the measurements. So I have loads of them. And what I decided to do, because um, if you watch the previous video, so this is the same car that I tuned, oh my God, like a few months ago probably. And the title of the video was Frustrations with Audison on my first customer tune. So this car was before with an Audison Virtuoso DSP, and I tried to tune it, and now it's with a Helix. So with that Virtuoso, I tried it for like 4 or 5 hours almost, and it was extremely difficult. And with Helix, I did the tune in literally 2.5 hours, which was super fast. And I do have the measurements of the old install, the old drivers. So now this car has all micro precision three-way, and before it had Audison tweeters, Hertz Millilegend mids, and Audison sax mid bass. And it will be very interesting to compare the old install and old drivers with the new install and new drivers and see the difference. So let's actually start with that, and let's start with the raw responses. So left and right tweeter, this is with 1/6 smoothing applied. The left one is on the passenger side, it's a bit more linear. The right one is slightly more off axis, hence the roll off, like from 8K and down. So it does roll off a bit more, but it's not that bad. Now I have the old ones as well, so let's compare with the old ones. So left tweeter old, as you can see. So if you haven't watched the video, the tweeters and mid-range were completely off axis and were aimed at each other. Whereas now the mid and tweets are aimed towards the driver, not 100%, but they're aimed much more towards the driver. As you can see, this is the old one when they were aiming opposite of each other, and this is not a really nice response. So you have a dip, it rolls off like above 11K, dip, peak, dip, dip. And this one left, even without no EQ, it's already much smoother and much nicer. And this is just proves that positioning and aiming drivers correctly adds already. So this response, even without EQ, it looks very good for, this is my target, for a target. It looks amazing. So this is the left one. The right one is the driver side. So as I mentioned now, it's slightly a bit off axis, but the response is nice. There's no big, even like without any smoothing, if I just remove all the smoothing, see, no big dips, no big peaks. It looks very, very nice. And the old install, right, Twitter, you can see here we have something and this dip, which I thought it might be a reflection from the front glass. So this is the old response. As you can see, it's much, much worse compared to the new one. Yeah. So tweeters, left and right, even with no EQ, just with the crossovers, they look very, very nice. So the driver side, as I mentioned, rolls off a bit earlier, but it's still fine. It's still very, very usable. Now let's have a look at the mids, left mid-range and right mid-range. And these could be potentially used as full range because they play up to 19K, a little bit EQ, and it's totally fine. So on the left side, we have a little bit problem here, like a 360, and here is a bit of a cancellation, but it's not wide, so it's very narrow. On the right side, the driver side, we have some wiggles here, so it might be, I don't know, maybe some comb filtering, something, but in general, the response looks amazing, looks very, very good. A little dip here, but it's very, very good. So let's compare it, left mid-range, the new one, with the old left mid-range, which was firing like completely off axis. So you can see this one, the old one, was a mess. So like from 2K, it's not that bad, plays all the way. But here is a big wide dip, one dip, two dip, massive peaks. So compared to this, the new one is much, much better response, much better. Now the right mid compared to the old right mid, look, so yeah. So this was the old, a total mess. Here, something happening, and yeah. And now, right, is like this. So these two graphs only prove how aiming a driver and positioning it correctly can add to, like, in general, because like, oh, sorry, I just zoomed in. Like even with no EQ, this response looks very, very nice. It looks very nice. What did I do? I pressed this one. Yeah, this one. It looks very nice. I'm very surprised. Like, Lee did an amazing job in installing these drivers. Amazing. Let's have a look at the mid bass. So the mid basses, nothing really changed apart from the install and the drivers. So Lee put a video online, if you want to check it out. It's on Platinum in Car, where he shows how he installed the mid-bass drivers. And so this is the left one, the new one, and left bass, this was the old one. So the Micro Precisions drivers, they play all the way up to 12K, 12, 13K, and the sax kind of falls off after 4.5, but these play all the way. They're much more linear, and the bottom end, look at the bottom end. So the sax, they were dropping off below like 75, 70. It's like off a cliff. And the Micro Precision that I install now, left bass, they play down to 35, with no problems at all. So this is a cancellation, yes. Let's remove this one. So this is a cancellation at 63, which you cannot do anything about it, but it's narrow, so it's fine. But they do play much, much lower. And I guess it's purely just because of install. It was done properly with, I guess there's like a spacer foam or something between the door card and the mid-bass driver, because on the old install, I couldn't see anything through the grill. So that's the left one. Now the right one is the driver side is the more problematic one, and it is more problematic. So with the even with the new drivers, we have a dip here, and we have a massive dip cancellation on the drivers, like 150, which is very, very typical for all the cars, and another cancellation as 450. And if you compare with the old one, right mid bass. So again, same cancellation here, a bit different frequency, but you can see that micro precision again plays all the way up to 10, 11K, and the sax falls off after 4K. So these are amazing, would be amazing for a two-way. And again, the bottom end, micro precision, has loads of bottom end and plays down to, again, 35, whereas sax falls off below like 70, 80. Yeah. And yeah, the sub didn't change yet. However, we are planning to change the subwoofer later on. But for now, I'm just going to remind you, it's an 8-inch Hertz Millilegend in an extremely, extremely small, like, I don't know, I want to say like 10, 15 liter box, extremely small box. And as you can see, it peaks at 45, quite high, but it does play low. I'm not sure about this, like between 10 and 20. It might be just my microphone picking up something, because I really doubt that that driver plays that low. But like, it can play down to 30, 40, easy. But then after that, not really. But it's very peaky. But hey, what can you do? So let's have a look. This was a comparison between old install and the new install. Now that let's have a look at where I chose the crossovers and what I did. So this, I decided to cross at 2.5K. I could cross it lower, but what's the point? Because the tweeters are extremely nice and they can play low. So I didn't want to cross them too low. So 2.5K sounded like a reasonable crossover point with no problems. Then between mid-range and mid-bass, so since we have quite a few problems with the doors, these mid-ranges, they were crossed at 100 Hertz for this specific just raw measurements. So they were not without crossover, it's 100 Hertz crossover. But I think they can easily play from like 200, especially if you put like 24 dB slope. So for the mid-range, it's not really a problem, but for the mid-bass, it is. So the left one, it's kind of fine. There's a 200, a small dip, but later there's a bigger dip. And I want to cross it before. So again, 200 for this looks fine. Right mid bass, good up till like 400, but here is a massive dip. And again, I wanted the mid-range to play a bit more range because they sound very, very nice. So I decided just to cross it at 200. And for the bottom end, they play very, very low. We have some problems here between like 60 and 70 Hertz. And you cannot really do anything about it. And the subwoofer has exactly the same problems. I don't think I have a measurement with no crossovers of the subwoofer for some reason. Oh, sub raw. There we go. There we go. I chose the wrong one. 1920. Just like that. Yeah. So as you can see, the mid bass, both of them have problems here, and even the subwoofer with raw measurement have problems in this area 65-70. because it kind of goes down. This is scoop out and then picks up again. So I think John already talked with Lee, and they are planning to install a front subwoofer as well in the passenger kick, just to cover this area and maybe fix. No, it's not going to be fixed this door, but it's mainly for this area, because like, see, the mid bass have problems in this area, and the subwoofer as well. So front sub would cover this area perfectly and just alleviate the pressure from the mid bass drivers, because now they're kind of working really hard because you have to cross them quite low, but they're handling it. But yeah, so I chose 75 hertz crossover somewhere here to cross them. Again, it's not ideal, but you cannot really do much. So let's have a look at my targets. Yeah, these are my targets. So 2.5K, 200 hertz, and 75 hertz. I opted for a bit more bass, so I have from this line 55 down to 30, I have 15 plus 15 dB of bass. So a bit more bass here because John likes to drive with his windows down, and yeah, a lot of wind noise and everything. So I just put a bit more bass here, and I did a slight scoop out of like 1.5 dB between 1 and 4. Not because those drivers sound harsh, they don't sound harsh at all, they sound very, very nice. It's just because from my experience, when you have this little scoop out of like 1 2 dB, the music sounds, how should I put it, nicer. Because again, John listens to a lot of rock, old school rock, and it is kind of harsh in this area with all the electric guitars. So I just did a little bit of scoop out to make that music a bit more pleasant. So these are my targets. Now let's have a look at the actual tune. So left tweeter, this is with a crossover, and this is after EQ, and I didn't need to EQ almost anything. I think I used on the tweet. Actually, let's have a look. Is it going to be saved? EQ. No, I didn't save. So I used literally 3 bands of EQ with I EQ'd it on 1/3, and I used literally 3 bands to cut a bit here, to cut a bit here, and to boost the top end a tiny bit. So very, very little. Exactly the same for the right one. It needed extremely little. So the slope was fine. It's just to cut this slight peak and raise the top end a tiny, tiny bit. And I ended up with the tweeters like this. And where's my target? Tweeter target. Like spot on the target. Yeah. So tweeters. Now the mids. So left mid range. After the crossover, I crossed them at, I think, 220 hertz with 24 dB and 2.5K, because as you can see, they go almost flat. So if you apply 24 dB Linkwitz-Riley, they will follow 24 dB Linkwitz-Riley, because if you have a flat response and you apply the electrical crossover, so the electrical is going to match the acoustical just because they play flat, almost flat. So this is a bit of a peak. But yeah, so this is with the crossovers, and then you can see this little dip here, and this is after EQ. So slopes match very, very nice. I didn't do anything about this little dip here, and I didn't do anything about this because it's very narrow, and it would be pointless to boost it, so I left it there. I just boosted this a tiny bit, and I ended up something like this. Now the right mid was almost flat. It didn't need almost anything. So again, crossovers. This one is a bit lower. This one was crossed at 200, I think. And again, 2.5K. And after EQ, right? Again, just this little dip, peak to EQ down, and this side to EQ down. Very little EQ needed. And this is just, I just left it as it is. And both drivers after EQ was like this. And they look with the tweeters like this. Now let's have a look at the mid bass, left bass. So this was a bit problematic. I crossed the drivers at, I think at 60. So it is quite low, but again, John doesn't listen to music that super, super loud. And those drivers are very capable. So I crossed them at 60 and 250 or something, I don't remember. So something like this. I couldn't do anything with this. And after EQ, left mid bass ended up like this. So I had to reduce the volume as well because the left one was a bit louder. So it's like minus 5 dB. So I didn't do anything about this dip. I just left it as it is because again, very narrow cancellation and you cannot do anything about it. And at 60 hertz, it's car. It's not the driver. So I just left it as it is. And the thing is with the mid bass, yeah, it didn't really follow all the way down. So it did follow down to like 45 hertz. And after that, it didn't really follow. And I didn't want to push it because it's already 60 hertz crossover. It's already quite low for a 6.5. It is 24 dB, but it's still quite low. And I didn't want to push it anymore. So I just left it as it is, just dropping off. And again, later, if it's going to be installing a front subwoofer, this range is going to be covered properly and the target is going to be followed properly. So it's not an issue. So that's the left one. Right, from this, again, crossed very similar crossovers at 60 and 250 or 300, something like that. And after EQ, the right mid bass ended up something like this. So I boosted a tiny bit here. It's like maybe like 2.5 dB, which is fine. And this one, you cannot really do anything about it. So again, I just left it as it is. That's the right one. So just, hey, it's a door. And again, exactly the same situation, left and right. So both of them match perfectly. And just the left one has a dip here at 60, which is like a cabin cancellation. And the right one has a dip here because of the, again, because of the door cabin cancellation. And they do follow the target perfect apart from like down to 45. And after that, not really. But again, it's not that of an issue. Now let's have a look at the subwoofer. Subwoofer raw with nothing. Again, a bit problematic this area because of the car, but it's fine. With crossover, it's just a bit of different on a different level. Took the measurements on different levels. So I crossed it at I think 60 or something or 70. And then EQ, something like this. I just removed this big peak and the rest didn't really need any EQ. It was kind of fine. So just like that. And where's my target? Sub-target. Just like that. Follows almost perfect. And basically ended up with this. Now, after I done this, I did the timing. So let's have a look at very quickly at the home impulse. So this is front sub. This is from just the naming from my car, but it's John's. So subwoofer and mid bass, they kind of deviate here below like 60-50. Again, because I think because of the mid bass doesn't follow. Again, it falls off the mid bass. Where is the target? Mid bass. It falls off the target, so it doesn't follow the target. And again, if it doesn't follow the target, the phase is not going to match. And at 60, we have this cancellation here as well on the one of the mid bass drivers. So it is what it is. But again, from 60, they match all the way up to more than 100 hertz. So I think it's fine. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's fine. Again, the timing 0. So I think it's good. Front subwoofer. Now let's have left mid range and right mid range. So again, this start is 0, very similar. Phase is they cross at 200, so the phase in the crossover region it matches, so they are in phase and in time. Now, one thing that I noticed here with the mid ranges, you see this on the left one. Let's remove the left one. Here we have some phase issues at about between like 7 and 800, 750 hertz. This may be a reflection or something. So this maybe would need an all-pass filter of some sort for better matching and for better summing, because I'm going to show you now. Where's the sum? All. This is the sum. Actually, let's remove everything. So they sum like this. Let's remove clear and all. As you can see, there's a massive dip here. It's very narrow, but it's big, but it's very narrow at 730, 40 hertz. And it matches exactly, exactly this was happening here. So maybe an all pass filter would help if we would have maybe next time a bit more time just to experiment with it. Maybe I could experiment with it, but like I was playing music and it sounded very, very nice. So I don't know, I just left it as it is. And on top of that, tweet left and tweet right. Left and right tweeters. So again, they crossed at 2.5K. And here you have this phase kind of match. Again, something is happening here. Maybe again, some reflections or something. But the main thing is not the phase, but the time. And they are in time. You can see it starts at 0. Kinda. Yeah. So they're fine. And yeah, so this was the final one, as I mentioned. So let's just very quickly double check with these. I didn't take any measurements of the pairs because I didn't feel like it's needed, because it just shows up in the whole sum. So if you have a look at, let me separate this sum from everything else so we could see it a bit better. Actually 10, just like that, and we can analyze. So it doesn't look flat, it doesn't look very linear. However, these non-linearities are caused by specific issues. So for example, this dip, as I mentioned, is something to do with a reflection or something, maybe. That's why it might need an all-pass filter or something. Here we have some dips as well, because of, for example, this dip is here, and it might be, again, some reflections happening. This dip here is because of the door. So it shows up in the sum, in the total sum, and you cannot do anything about it. So it's just because of the door. If the door wasn't there, it would be like that. And this dip is here is because of the left mid bass that has the cabin cancellation. Just like that. So like if you remove everything, all, let's actually put it a bit down where it was. There we go. So again, it doesn't look that linear, but it sounds so good. It sounds amazing. So this is the overall target. Actually, let me put it. Let's bring this down a bit, just like that. So yeah, now I realize that I needed to increase the subwoofer. So this was my mistake, because of what I do. Sometimes I forget that when you sum the drivers, this is a pair, so they sum more, mid-range sum more, mid-bass sum more, and the subwoofer, it doesn't sum, it stays as it is because it's just one subwoofer. So I would just when John comes next time for the rear subwoofer, maybe I would just need to increase this by like 3-4 dB, the subwoofer. Yeah, I just forgot. But that's the scoop out, a little scoop out here. And again, this you can't really do anything. So let's look at it with 1/3, just like that. Again, not extremely linear, not extremely pretty, but it sounds awesome. So this was the first time for me personally where I was working with such high caliber gear. Audison amps, those amps are amazing. these micro precision drivers are, I cannot say, I'm lost in words because they're so good. They sound so nice. Again, as I mentioned, is one of the best sounding cars that I've ever heard. But yeah, I would need to push this subwoofer a bit more. However, it still sound good because I still have, if I have this, I still have, how much is it? 512, no, yeah, like 10, more than 10 plus 10 dB of bass. So it still sounds fine. It's not boomy. It's not missing. If he needs more bass, we can increase the subwoofer by like 3 4 dB. It's not a problem at all. But again, he's gonna be replacing the subwoofer with a bit bigger one, and then later on in the future, maybe the front subwoofer, just to work with these issues that he has in the cabin between 60 and 70, just to cover this range, because you cannot do anything with this gear. And maybe I'm gonna try an all pass filter in this. Yeah, if you have any suggestions what to do with this area, put it in a comment. I'm gonna have a look. But I think it's an all pass filter, needs one all pass, and maybe it's gonna be fine. But yeah, now, like, this tune compared to when we had Audison drivers and Audison DSP is it's not even comparable. It's night and day difference. This sounds so good. If you ever have a chance to listen to this car, please do. I'm gonna tell John to go any meetings we're gonna have anytime. It sounds amazing. So yeah, that's the tuning session of Nissan Qashqai with micro precision drivers and Audison amps and a Helix DSP. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.